Hello, listeners and lurkers. Welcome to Helping Hands, therapy notes from our multidimensional chaos. I'm January, and my co host is,
Lady Lily.
and this is our first podcast, first ever podcast. Our topic for our first podcast is going to be friendship and relationships because Lily and I are still just getting to know each other. And we thought it would be a great experience to sort of go through that in real time. Um, Before we get into it, though, we're going to start with a fun personal question to get to know each other. And that is, what is your favorite time of year or holiday and why? Um, you go ahead and start us off, Lily.
All right. So my favorite time of year is winter. It's kind of a very basic. I don't know. I think it's a basic reason is because you can put on plenty of clothes, blankets. You can't take your skin off when it's hot. And I know people everywhere, but especially people in the South definitely understand that need of just like I wish I could just take off my skin because I'm so hot. And I also love I'm a very big cuddler, so I love cuddling. And that's not something fun to do in the summer because everybody's sticky. Um and then my favorite holiday, honestly, I mean I love Halloween because I love dressing up, but I've incorporated that dressing up into my daily life anyways. So it then goes to Christmas because not because of the religious symbolization and stuff of it, but because I genuinely like one of my love languages is gifting and gifts. And it's not just receiving gifts, it's giving gifts. I love it brings me so much joy to give people gifts that they like and that are personal to them. It's not just a random gift, but something that I thought about and thought what would they like and means that I thought about them. And I just love giving gifts and making people smile and brightening up their face.
That's awesome. Now, what kind of gifts do you like to give?
Um, what do you mean by what kind of gifts? Like specific items or
Yeah, that's kind of a weird question. I guess when I give gifts, I have a process where I really try to sort of pinpoint something specific about the person, and
yeah.
try to surprise them.
Yeah, exactly. So like I think about what I know about them, their favorite colors, favorite animals. A lot of times though I do like handmade things, so a lot of paintings. All my friends get tons of paintings. And so but they're personalized paintings. They're something that means either between our relationship or something that they like, animals, themes. Um, and if it's not a painting or something that I've made, it's something that they want. It's I find out things that they want, and it's making sure that it's something that they like and will use and need. And that's one of my process methods, I guess, is what is that's why in one of my servers I have things we want. So not just me, but I other people can post things that they want and I can go through and be like, okay, they want this. And it may not be that exact item, but it gives me an idea of something else that they might like that is adjacent.
I love that. Yeah. I like looking throughout the year, and if something catches my eye or it reminds me of somebody, then I might grab it and then like wait for their birthday to give it to them or Christmas and stuff. But
Exactly, exactly.
so
So
my
what it
favorite. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
that was exactly what I was about to ask is what is your favorite time of year and holiday?
My favorite time of the year is mostly. I do like the summertime when I have access to a pool.
Yes, I
Um,
love to swim.
yeah, I love the water, and I love being able to wear. sleeveless outfits and cute summer dresses.
Mhm.
But I also love the fall because of the change in the colors. And here in California, the fall is pretty temperate, so it's just
Mhm.
this nice even temperature that's really nice. But also in the fall, it comes Halloween, which is my favorite holiday. I
Mhm.
don't really like other holidays for the most part, but I love Halloween because simply because you get to dress up.
Mhm.
And I haven't really had many years where I've gotten to celebrate it because I was raised in a strict religion. But um, ever since I got out, I've been trying to just embrace the Halloween spirit.
Yes, I
And
love it.
so yeah, that's those are my
Yeah,
favorite time of the year. Summer, autumn, and holiday is Halloween.
nice. And something else I wanted to add about Halloween that I love is, so my heritage is Hispanic, and I love, uh, Dios de Dios de la Muerte? Dios de Muerte?
Yes, yes, the Day of the
Um,
Dead.
Day of the Dead. I love the idea, I may not firmly believe in it, but I love the idea of the ofrenda. I can't speak it. I suck. Um, but I keep one up all year round for my grandmother. And she was cremated, and so her ashes are actually we've not been able to afford a urn yet, so they're still in the box. But it sits on our mantle, and she was a lane minister, and so she had gotten from Israel. It is what it is. But from quote unquote the Holy Land, a uh, it's like a prayer scarf, and so we have that on because I she was who she was, and but I love her all the same, and that was something that was very important to her. And so we have that laid out as kind of the cloth for the ofrenda. And then we have like pictures of her and my great grandmother and stuff. And she loved cherry Pepsi. So for like 6 years, we've had a cherry Pepsi sitting on the mantle.
That's so cool.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go into our deep dive. As I said before, we're this is Lily and I are relatively new and getting to know each other. And something unique to both of us is we're both neurodivergent. And
Mhm.
we thought that it might be cool to sort of be vulnerable in real time because neurodivergent individuals they struggle with friendships and knowing um, how to express boundaries and how to be healthy. And because sometimes we tend to want to get caught up in our emotions and we rush into making connections.
Mhm.
And so I thought we would talk about just different things that we like, that we our wants and our needs and our boundaries and stuff.
Mhm.
And so I like the first thing that we can talk about is boundaries. And the thing about boundaries is that sometimes you can communicate them outright, but
Mhm.
then other times you don't realize that you need a boundary until something comes up.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's a thing too. And the thing that I've learned about boundaries is it's really important to know yourself, know what you need, and then be able to ask for it. And conversations about boundaries tend to be very, very um, tender
Yes.
for all parties involved. And so I've learned to try to pick my timing to talk
Mhm.
about boundaries when the like all parties are sort of at a neutral state,
Yeah, and they're
because
receptive
things
to it.
exactly because it can escalate very quickly because those
Mhm.
boundaries are attached to really personal tendrils that we have. So
Yes.
um I thought the first I kind of tried to break it down in like types of boundaries that maybe we can like talk about.
Mhm.
And so my boundaries are related to my time, my space. I have emotional boundaries, I have physical boundaries.
Mhm.
Um, and mostly the boundary is just, hey, let's stay honest and communicate to each other what feels
Yes.
good, what we have energy for, um, and to, try to be respectful for each other's limitations.
Mhm.
And even if we feel like we're disappointed, which we will be, because that's just, human interaction, but that's okay
Yeah.
because we learn how to process that and get through it. And we can also, in within those boundaries, we can always stay honest and talk to each other about, hey, how does this boundary make you feel? Do we need
Mhm.
to negotiate what that boundary looks like?
Yes.
And they can be flexible, they can be negotiated. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest elements to having boundaries and being able to
Mhm.
communicate them with my friends is to be like, here's how I feel about this, and this is a boundary for me. But at the same time, I recognize that you're a whole different person and you may feel differently. And so let's come together and figure out what feels good and safe for both of us.
Exactly.
How about you? What do you think?
So one of the boundaries, like a lot of what you said, I completely agree with, and I struggled with the question of boundaries because I don't know a lot of boundaries until, like you said, they come up. And so, like, thinking about them, I'm like, I don't know. The only one that I did think of, which is a general respect, honestly, is when I ask you to stop or give me time, that you do that and not continue on, you know? And
Exactly.
that I feel like that is a basic respect of somebody. But other people might not see it that way, but that is one of my boundaries. And something else, I'll I guess repeat it later is is that as much as I love other people, my mom and my family do come first, and they're who I take care of, and I have responsibilities to them. And so, it's a boundary of respecting my time and my needs and responsibilities with my family.
Absolutely. Yeah, the only really specific one I could come up with, very similar to what you said, but taking it a step further, I I think when it comes to venting to somebody. Now, let's say I come to you and say, I think, and we have actually previously talked about this briefly, and I think that you may have even brought it up as far as communication that happens between multiple people. And
Yes.
let's say we go to one person in confidence, talking about another person, or just in confidence in general. The person that you go to in confidence, first of all, I believe in making sure that person knows, hey, I'm coming to you in confidence and I need you to keep whatever we're talking about just between us
Mhm.
until you know otherwise. So that they know, okay, I'll try not to slip up.
Yeah, I've definitely failed in that area.
Same. And that's also something that, as imperfect humans, we sort of need to take into consideration
Mhm.
and then have communication about. But um, I think that in the case of where you have an experience of somebody who is repeatedly broken a confidence or
Mhm.
divulged personal information that maybe you didn't want out there, even though they knew specifically that they shouldn't have or weren't supposed to,
Yeah,
that's a huge boundary for me.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and so because I feel like each person deserves to have given this their space and time to process whatever emotional upheaval they're dealing with. So,
Mhm.
for example, let's say I come to you and I'm venting about my partner and
Mhm.
you're being the gracious listener and understanding. And so if you went outside that and talked to my partner about what we had said, that would be crossing a boundary.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
That's just kind of an example. And I know that we both understand that because we've had it happen to us.
Mhm.
So we're both kind of hyper vigilant about not doing that to other people.
Yes, yes.
But that's a very specific boundary for me. But my other boundaries are, like you said, they come up in the moment, usually related to time, space, and emotional and
Mhm.
physical energy. And I feel like so far you and have been really great about communicating that to each other
Yes.
on a regular basis, which I deeply, deeply appreciate.
So do I.
Okay, so the next thing that we were going to talk about was, what do we want from our connection? What are our needs and wants? What are we looking for in
Mhm.
the connection between you and I, and just connection in general?
Mhm.
Um, and they may be the same things.
Yeah.
I personally want to connect with you specifically because I immediately was found so much of what you had expressed on your Facebook and everything. It just resonated. There was just
Mhm.
something that clicked. And ever since we've been talking on a regular basis, we just keep finding more and more things that how we have in common,
Oh,
and
yeah.
not just surface level stuff. This is like goes deep too.
Mhm.
And that's why I want to be connected to you, because I feel like we have a lot in common. I feel like we both need that support, that validation,
Mhm.
and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
Um, but in general, I think the basics. I want to be loved, accepted. I want to
Mhm.
feel safe. I want to feel like there's a community that cares, that will be showing up for mutual aid,
Mhm.
whether that be physical or emotional aid. Um,
Mhm.
that's all why I like connection. And those are the things that I want to get out of it. And so I'm willing to show up to put into connection those same
Yeah.
things.
To
How about
give
you?
what you're wanting.
Exactly.
For me, I want with you and in general, I want a genuine connection, someone of like mind who is willing to be open, honest, and authentic with me and allows me the same courtesy. I want something that is true, that we will work at, and not just something comes up that is disagreement or something, and just like, oh, I'm just gonna drop you like a bag of bricks. Nope, we're done. Someone to walk with me through life and to learn and grow with. To share experiences and learn from each other's experiences. And I think that's really important in general as humans. We don't all experience the same thing, but if we share our experiences, it can help other people, whether it's by sharing our mistakes so that they don't make the same mistakes, or we have knowledge that they don't, and sharing that knowledge. I firmly believe that knowledge and stuff, and it should be shared freely.
I agree. Definitely. And I, I feel safer the more honest somebody is.
Yes.
So I'm very attracted to people, just other humans who are just unapologetically themselves and honest, and not in a dispassionate way, like
Mhm.
without empathy, but just very unique, and but willing to be honest about themselves, and the world around them. I feel safer with that
Yes.
kind of energy. Um, I think that I was going to wait and touch on the next segment a little bit later, but I think this it goes along with this as far as relationships. And I was going to ask the question, how has your experience with past relationships brought you to this point as far as understanding now what you need? Like, was there any lessons that you learned from past relationships that helped you to figure out, okay, this is what I want from connection?
Mhm.
Um, I know I've had plenty of experiences in relationships, whether it be with family, friends, romantic. And the thing that they all have in common was a lack of honesty, a lack of
Mhm.
communication, and a either unwillingness or inability to show up.
Exactly. Yes.
And so I've learned that those are three really important things
Mhm.
that make a relationship sustainable and successful.
Mhm.
And one thing that people need to accept is that if you're not fighting, somebody's not being honest.
Yeah.
And maybe I shouldn't say fighting, I should say disagreeing.
Mhm.
Because if you're going to disagree because everybody has different perspectives, different experiences. And
Mhm.
if you're always agreeing and there's never any disagreement on anything, it's usually a sign that somebody's not being honest about something.
Yeah. Or there's issues with somebody that you're afraid of disagreeing with them.
Yes.
But
Yes.
for me, this is definitely a hard one because I have, that bad voice in my head that says that what I've learned is that I'm too much for everybody. That it always gets to a point where whatever is me, they can't handle. But, you know, that no one keeps their promises, and tries to work through the difficult things. But on the positive side of things, I've learned that I am worth being loved. These are discoveries that I've made myself through my relationships, but that came because of me, and that I am a good person. I strive so hard to be a good person, and that's what makes me a good person because I keep trying. I've also lear
Exactly.
Yeah, I've also learned how important, like you said, open, honest communication is, and it is a must. I also learned recently that I believe I'm saying I got the correct, term for it, but that I have an anxious attachment personality. Is that what it's called?
Yes, and I also struggle with that as well.
Yes, and thank you to you for showing me that aspect. I didn't know that there was, when I read about it, I resonated with every single thing that it said.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's me."
Yeah. Talking about that feeling of being too much, that is such a difficult feeling to process for me too, because and this is something that I've been really struggling with just in the past few days, just
Mhm.
um, brought to tears quite often because that voice in my head, that cruel voice keeps saying, "This is you. You're the common denominator. There's something wrong with you."
Exactly.
And it's hard to ignore that when you,
Mhm.
because I'm the kind of person that likes to look at the evidence.
Mhm.
And so I'm looking back on all my past relationships and I'm trying to see the evidence. But
Yeah.
and that cruel voice sort of only allows me to see certain aspects of the
Yeah.
evidence.
It's like it only allows you to see your excuse me, but fuck ups. And
Exactly. Or what
eh,
feels like are fuck
yeah.
ups.
Yeah. That's a better way to say it. What feels like our fuck ups. And we don't see the other person, what the other person did.
Yes. Yes. And so um I'm so grateful to my partner who helps to remind me and give me the rest of the perspective of like, hey, look at the
Yes.
rest of this evidence that you're not considering. And which goes back to what you just said, is as long as you're trying to be a good person, you're a good person.
Exactly.
Only good people ask themselves, "Hey, what's wrong with my behavior? Should I adjust this? How do I reevaluate this?" Like, only
Mhm.
people who are actually have empathy are asking those questions of themselves,
Yes.
and that's that is the turning point that makes somebody kind or not unkind.
Yeah,
And
and just to say that my partner does the same thing that yours does of being like, "Hey, look at this too. You're not seeing this."
it's so important to have
Mhm.
people like that in our lives. Then my partner was reminding me last night, like, all these thoughts that I'm saying are coming from the you know childhood of constant gaslighting, just
Yeah.
constant, like. And what that's done to me is that it's made me doubt everything, and I just
Mhm.
am a lot of times in this state of confusion and doubt, doubting my own perception of experiences, how I feel. I will ruminate about, is this real? Do I feel
Mhm.
real? It's such a confusing and fearful place to be for me.
Yeah.
And it really helps to have him say, "Hey, look, here's the rest of the evidence that you're forgetting to look at. Let's put this into perspective."
Yes.
And it really, really helps to have people like that. And I hope that, I think that maybe we can be that for each other too,
Mhm.
in this process.
I think so too. I have really enjoyed what we've done, what we've experienced so far between you and I and even you and your partner and I love what we've built so far.
I'm so enjoying this process. And for the listeners, to give you a little bit more context, Lily and I are both polyamorous, and we both have long-term nesting partners, and we've both had experiences with other, polyamorous relationships.
Mhm.
But we are coming into this like any other friendship relationship, and getting to know each other and seeing what happens, and
Yeah.
getting to know each other's tertiary partners, and seeing where that goes. And so there's a little bit of an added context, but the interactions that we've all shared up until this point have been so wonderful and great. And
Mhm.
um, just kind of a side note, we'll be doing a D&D game here soon, or not D&D, excuse me, Pathfinder,
Mhm.
um, run by Lily, of course. And that's going to be really fun. I think that's going to open up some really interesting areas, at least for me. I
Yes,
think
I
it's going to help me
agree.
get out of my comfort zone a little bit in a really
Mhm.
good way, and I'm excited to explore that. And I'm sure that we'll cover our experience of that in a future
Yes.
episode.
Yes, I'm sure we'll talk about our campaign and what's happened so far, and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, me too.
Just the experiences and because that's something I love about tabletop role playing games, but I'm solidly Pathfinder is getting to step out of your comfort zone, getting to be somebody else, do things that are different that maybe you've thought about but you never did. Or, just having different thought processes and getting out of your own I guess almost in a way getting out of your own skin.
Yes, literally, almost. I mean, not literally, but imaginatively, yes, because you are
Yes.
putting on a whole other skin and a whole other personality, but it still has aspects of who you are.
Yes, yes, for sure.
Okay, so the next part we were going to talk about, or at least try, was kind of the deal breakers and triggers. So we could
Mhm.
start with deal breakers. I think by this point we probably know we have a lot of this similar things, but I can be specific about it.
Mhm.
It goes along with a lot of the things we've just said. Um, Deal breakers, SA, um, intentional gaslighting,
Mhm.
any kind of deliberate meanness If the meanness has been addressed and the person is choosing to not address their own behavior, that's a deal breaker. If they're not willing to communicate honestly, not having empathy just in
Mhm.
general is a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
Um, and just not wanting to look at the healing and the work that that person needs to do. And because if we're not healing ourselves and taking care of those parts of us that are wounded, we will hurt the people around us. It's
Yes.
guaranteed.
Yes.
So every person really needs to be able to take that responsibility on in order to be able to maintain healthy, loving relationships, at
Mhm.
least for me. Um, and of course, if they have totally different values, I mean, that's a deal breaker. If I find out that they're racist or,
Yeah, exactly.
that those are all deal breakers. No, any kind of discrimination, I don't tolerate
Yeah.
that.
That is actually my biggest one, and the one that I wrote down. I said fundamental or moral disagreements to an extent, just like you said, racist and uh uh what is the word you just said?
Discrimination?
Yes, discrimination.
Yeah.
Anything like that or, fundamentally disagreeing on how to treat people.
Yeah.
And that is one of my biggest ones is just like if we can't agree on basic things of how to treat people and how that's just it's not going to work. And getting unreconcilably I can't say it unreconcilably angry over me being busy or taking care of my family. You know,
Yes.
not
Yes.
again goes back to not respecting my time and my responsibilities.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
aside from that, I will deal with a lot of shit. I will deal with a lot of shit. But if you're not if you're not showing progress, if you're not trying to work on yourself, then I don't want that because I want to be with somebody that is constantly working on themselves, constantly trying to be better. And so those are kind of my deal breakers. And but like I said, I'll deal with a lot of shit because people have a lot of shit.
Absolutely. I think I heard somebody say once that the best apology is changed behavior,
Yes.
because otherwise, whatever apology they made is empty.
Yeah.
Um, I have this asterisk one about deal breakers that something that I've struggled with,
Mhm.
that I still struggle with, and I'm trying to process it because it's a little bit tricky.
Mhm.
And I call it guilt by association. Um, I have a really hard time. Now, I'll give you an example. We were kind of talking about this earlier in our families, where um, I was saying that my ex-husband wouldn't protect me from his family that was abusing me.
Yeah, wasn't your advocate.
Exactly. That is guilt by association
Mhm.
to me. If you are allowing toxic people in your life, they are doing active harm, and you're not setting safe boundaries for yourself and the people around you, I really struggle with that. Now, I don't have any control over that person setting boundaries. And I feel like it might be an overstep to go to them and say, hey, I need you to set this boundary, depending on the circumstances,
Yeah.
because you can't really demand anybody to do anything. It's completely up to them.
Mhm.
But admittedly, I have a hard time. And there's every situation has its own set of context and nuance.
Yes.
Um, and that's sometimes really hard for me to look at when all I see is that person causing harm. Like,
Mhm.
let's say, for example, okay, so I've had experiences in my life where my auntie, who was like my second mother,
Mhm.
she was married to a man, my uncle, who is a raging alcoholic, and he
Mhm.
was a complete asshole when he was drunk.
Yeah.
And for a while, before he, got cirrhosis of the liver and had to literally stop drinking, I couldn't be around them
Yeah.
because he was racist and he would say really awful things, make me feel unsafe.
Mhm.
And my aunt didn't really set any boundaries about it.
Yeah.
And so I told her, I was like, the best I can do here is I will come and pick you up and we can go out to lunch. But I
Mhm.
cannot spend time around my uncle because of this.
Yeah.
And so, excuse me, that's kind of what I mean by guilt association by association. Have you ever had
Yeah.
that experience?
I have, and to be quite frank, my husband, my nesting partner is an amazing person, and but he also struggled with that, and so it took a while for him to set the boundary with his mother when she was doing hurtful things to me and saying hurtful things to me, and he didn't, he wasn't my advocate. He didn't protect me from it. And I mean, eventually he did. He grew and did eventually do so, but it took a while, and it was hurtful in the moment that but he also he's very, which I am as well, non-confrontational. So it's easier to ignore it.
Right.
And but he did step up and protect me and set those boundaries, and so I'm very proud of him and very thankful for what he's done and how he's helped me, because it's hard for me to set those boundaries too, and it's hard for me when it's necessary to remove people from your life. It's very hard for me to do that.
Yeah, same. I keep thinking about experiences that I've had within friendships where have watched or observed how they interact with other friends.
Mhm.
And maybe the way that they interact with that friend is really toxic.
Mhm.
And I clock it. And I'm like, "Hey, wait a second. If they're going to behave that way in that situation, how are they going to behave if it comes up between us?"
Yeah.
And so that's where I struggle with, like, the guilt by association. I there it requires raw honesty
Mhm.
and a willingness to really dig into those little issues because each situation has its own nuance. And
Mhm.
um, I've learned that I can't just write somebody off immediately just because I have an uncomfortable feeling. I have to be like,
Yeah.
okay, there's context to this. Let's address it. And then if it goes badly, then that'll be my answer.
Yeah, and that's something that I try to ex- not express, but to 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 tell people to is that when people ask me like questions about such as deal breakers or um boundaries and stuff, every situation, every relationship is different. There's
Exactly.
context and there's experiences, and so it's hard for me, like, to answer these questions and stuff, because it's a generalization, and for me, when I look at things, everything is unique. So it's hard to put hard lines, and, like, I personally don't I very, very, extremely, very rarely deal in absolutes.
Yeah, me neither. Although it's something that I do have to work through sometimes because being raised in a high control religion, uh, it really sort of, I can't think of the right word, but it reinforced the black
Mhm.
and white thinking
Yes.
where there is no nuance. It's just you're either
Mhm.
this or that, and that's not realistic at all for humans. And so it is something that
Yeah.
I have to consciously remind myself. But
Mhm.
again, my partner has been wonderful in helping me recognize
Yes.
how to appreciate the nuance because if when you appreciate the nuance and respect it, you're able to really express empathy. And
Mhm.
being empathetic is so important to me. I
Mhm.
remember that this was important to me even when I was little.
Mhm.
And so I try to be the most empathetic in the healthiest way possible.
Yes. Yes.
And that's part of that is being able to understand and respect the nuance in every situation.
I agree.
And I think that kind of goes through some of the lessons we've learned. I mean, I think that probably all of our experiences have contributed to us making the current boundaries that we've communicated here today. And
Yeah.
oh, I forgot one more deal breaker is habitually lying. I cannot deal with lying. Like, if you lie and then the truth comes out and then we deal with it and we try to figure out how can we make it safer so that you feel like you don't have to lie, that's one thing.
Yes, yes, I agree, but
But
habitually
it's
lying, no, no.
yeah, like I can't. That's not cool.
But that goes into the open, honest communication.
Exactly. Again, it always comes back to that.
Yes.
Always comes back to that. Um, so the next thing we were going to try to talk about is triggers.
Mhm.
And triggers is kind of like boundaries, where a lot of times it just comes up in the moment. And so I'm thinking that whatever description we give of our triggers was probably going to be very broad at this
Mhm.
point until it comes up specifically in the moment.
Yeah.
Although there's been a couple of times where you have been really great about being succinct about your specific triggers,
Mhm.
which helps me to learn how to express mine. So I really
Yes.
appreciate that.
I am glad.
But I try to write down some that are some keywords that I thought that are typically triggering for me.
Mhm.
Um, seeing someone being unfairly judgmental
Mhm.
or cruel,
Mhm.
um, people who are being uh, cruel to the vulnerable, like children, disabled, minorities,
Mhm.
etc. I react very strongly to all of that.
I agree.
The other thing, this might be a new word for you because it was a new word for me just a few years ago, but a bad faith interlocutor. Um,
Yeah,
an
that is the
interloc an interlocutor is basically somebody participating in a conversation.
okay.
Um, but those, yeah, I bad faith interlocutors are really triggering for me.
Mhm.
And I'm actually learning how to respond better by watching a lot of online talk shows where they're talking about critical thinking and
Mhm.
reasoning and science. And I've really learned a lot of really positive communication techniques and learning how to try and take a step back when that trigger comes up. That
Yeah.
instinct to want to just jump on it and fight
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
um, I'm learning to sort of try and take a step back. And even though I can recognize that person may be coming in bad faith, it's like, okay, wait, let's try and give them as much grace as possible
Mhm.
because I'd rather be that person than lower myself to their level,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? Um, any kind of bigotry,
Mhm.
specifically religious based bigotry because of
Yes.
my upbringing.
Yes.
And, but yeah, those are my, you know, over like broad triggers.
Mhm.
And I think that maybe as they come up in our relationship, we can maybe bring them up in future podcasts and talk about the specific ones if that comes
Yeah.
up. But
Yeah, for sure.
how about you?
For me, very similar, very, you know, same for your to yours, but I did write down two specific ones, which I have already actually told you these,
Yeah.
but there's the I know that it it does like officially trigger me of seeing, and this is going to come up, of Christian, specifically worship services, and that aspect of the religion, it it from my trauma in it, it triggers me, like, I think the word is viscerally. Like, I
Yes.
I I actively get triggered. And another thing that doesn't trigger me as bad, but it does, like, I will remove myself from the conversation or ask it to be changed, is hearing, like, gory details about dismemberment, because I have trauma with something injuring me like that. And so I don't, if people start, like, if someone just talks about topic topically talks about it, somebody got this cut off or anything, you know, I can handle that. But when you start going into the gory details, no, that's a deal breaker for the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
But aside from that, I'm not entirely certain on what's triggers until they come up, like you said. And something that I think is very important about when you get triggered is to, one, verbalize that, make sure the other person knows, because they don't know
100%.
know your triggers. You're the
Yeah.
only one that knows your triggers, and even if you don't you know it when it happens.
Yes.
And so you can't blame the other person for triggering you because they didn't know. You can
Exactly.
blame them if they continue to trigger you and don't
Right.
respect you, but don't blame them off the bat when they didn't know. And so you verbalize that you've been triggered, and then you can ask to accommodate you or to leave the conversation. And talk to them later about, hey, I didn't appreciate this, and that open, honest communication. And but that's the thing that I've come across multiple times with people that get triggered, is they get mad at the person for triggering them, and they don't think about the fact that, hey, they didn't know.
Yeah.
They can't read your mind. How do you expect them to know this when you haven't verbalized this to them prior?
Yeah, exactly. That's key is, again, it comes back to that communication. And that can be really hard when you're emotionally activated, in those moments.
Yes.
But it is important to be able to have, somebody that you do feel safe with and be like that you can muddle through those difficult
Mhm.
moments
For sure.
with. And yeah, it's all about treating each other with compassion and grace.
Yeah.
And something that I've learned recently is because looking through the lens of myself and my partner and all people who are neurodivergent, looking at their behavior through that lens and
Mhm.
in a sense in order to give them grace.
Yeah.
I think that that's really important um, because neurodivergency uh, comes out uniquely.
Mhm.
And we're all having human behaviors. Like being neurodivergent doesn't necessarily mean that we're not that our behaviors aren't normal, that they're not human. They're actually all these behaviors are also behaviors that neurotypical people experience.
Mhm.
They're just amped up for neurodivergent people
Mhm.
because their sensory receptors are like heightened. They're like,
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere it's like 40% more heightened than a
Mhm.
neurotypical person.
Mhm.
So that's definitely that, again, there's that context and nuance.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are our triggers. I feel like that was a really good overview.
Yeah.
Just a kind of an introductory. Here's kind of where we stand. Let's have some fun and go from there.
I agree.
And so, did you have anything else you wanted to add as far as relationships and connections?
No, not really. Just that, in general, with our relationship specifically, and our relationship as couples together, my me and my nesting partner husband, and you and your nesting partner, I just want to I want freely open to see where it goes, and I'm excited to see what I learned from you, the experiences that you share with me, even if they're negative experiences that you've had or anything like that. I I am excited for the it's like a labyrinth or a maze puzzle that you get to put together, and I'm so excited for it, and I have this great feeling even though I've been through so many traumatic relationships, and it's scary. It is really scary, but I'm also here for it and I'm excited, and I want to show up for those difficult times, and just I'm so excited for our relationship.
Me too, sweetheart. I'm really excited. I have some. I just feel good about how this is going. And
Mhm.
for the listeners, we've already started to build our own canon, so to speak. Lily just mentioned the labyrinth reference to in getting to know people. That's something
Mhm.
that is now canon. We refer
Yes.
to be referring to friendships and getting to know each other as exploring the labyrinth and the adventure of that.
I agree. I
And then
wholeheartedly agree.
and then we have one other canon that we're going to try and incorporate more is that because there's so much alike in our experiences, we started saying mirror to each other instead of
Mhm.
same because it just encompasses that feeling of like hearing the other person's experience and just immediately going, yep, that's my reflection.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love it, and I love that you were into the idea of us having a canon of things like that, and so yes, I am so here for this.
Oh yeah, inside jokes and canon, that's some of my favorite stuff when it comes to friendships.
Yes,
um,
and I've so rarely had it, so I'm so excited.
Me too, me too. So that kind of brings us to a close. That was a really great conversation. But
Yeah.
before we end the show, we like to ask, and sometimes we might begin the show with this question or end it, but it's something that I thought was fun and whimsical. So we ask ourselves, what color do you feel like today and why? So why don't you go first, Lily?
Okay, so the color I feel is it's kind of a strange color for me because I'm not a pink person. But it's kind of a almost a light magenta, so in between pink and purple. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's the color I'm wearing right now.
Oh, that's so great. But it feels bubbly to me, and like heading towards this this bright and like alive with um with energy color, and it's not quite there yet, but it's headed that way, and that's how I feel today, is especially because we decided to do the record this podcast today. Just that excitement, and there's still a little trepidation, but just that anticipation. Oh, now I wish I had the sound for that. Anticipation. Yeah. Anyways,
Yes,
Rocky
I
Horror
know.
Picture Show.
I heard it in my head.
Yes, yes, yes. Mirror.
Mirror. um, I think today my color, I feel purple. Purple's
Mm,
one of my favorite colors, and purple makes me feel very safe, very warm, very wrapped up, very
mirror.
just soft. And that's kind of how I'm feeling today. So today my color is purple.
That is wonderful. So yeah, when you were describing it and you said warm, before you even said that, when you said purple and how it makes you feel, I was like, it makes you feel warm.
Yeah.
And then you said it was just like, okay, you're in my head.
There's that mirror again.
Yep.
This is why we call it a multidimensional chaos because we never know and we're in different dimensions, but somehow we stay connected and that
Yes,
is so amazing and beautiful to me.
love it.
So,
Well, I
th-
enjoyed this conversation and expressing these things with you.
me too, sweetheart. And this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you to all the listeners. If you're out there, listeners and lurkers, this has been Helping Hands, our therapy notes from our multidimensional chaos.
Thank you.
Looking forward. Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you next time. And don't forget to love each other.
Bye.
Bye bye.